Hi, everybody. Lori Micah here. Over the weekend, a friend of mine asked me of all the NDE interviews I'd done, which one stood out the most. And it didn't take me long to remember Dr. Lynda Cramer's NDE because she had a very unique life review. And I've been obsessed with life reviews for a very long time. And Dr. Raymond Moody, the father of NDEs, said that Linda's near death experience is one of the most detailed that he had ever heard. And when I looked on YouTube and just took a quick peek at three of the videos where Lynda was interviewed, they had a total view of over 3 million people. And when I released her interview a year ago, it went to about 1,000 people because my channel was pretty small back then. But I wanted to re release Lynda's interview because we didn't do a standard interview. We went very deep down the rabbit hole and explored her life review in great detail. So I'm releasing it again, hoping that it reaches more people because it's just that good. So I really hope you enjoy it.
I could see the energy rays, and it was beautiful, but I wasn't scared. I was so calm. And one of them spoke to me telepathically, and they said, "We are not here to judge." And instantly I knew that I was here to judge. I was here to judge me. Every action I'd done, every reaction I had done, every thought I had ever had is a creation of an intention that puts energy out there into the ether that causes a ripple that does affect others. So when I'm in an angry mood, that anger comes out of me like a ripple of energy and it affects other people. And this is what happens when we walk into a room and we smile, because our emotions are contagious. So everybody else starts smiling. What was the ripple that happened as a consequence of that? So we have to go through all those ripples. So I look at people in history. Let's go there with someone that we don't know, Adolf Hitler.
Thank you
Yeah,
for saying that. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I can't tell you how many times this is the example in the comments about what about the evil? What about the hell? What
that's
about all
that's
this? Oh my
right.
gosh. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I normally do
No,
not
you're
talk
fine.
during somebody's NDE, but this is such a big deal. I'm so excited you're going to share this. My guest today is Dr. Lynda Cramer, who had a near death experience in 2001 where she was clinically dead for 14 minutes. During her NDE, time didn't exist, but to her, it was as if she spent 5 Earth years on the other side. And she encountered her great grandmother, who gave her information about the future, not only for Lynda, but also for humanity. Now, this happened 23 years ago, and since then, she has been able to write down and get confirmations for many of those prophecies. So I'm really excited to talk to her today. So, Lynda, welcome. Thank you so much for
Well,
joining us.
it is my pleasure to be here with you, Laurie. You know, I when this happened to me, 25 years, I don't know how long ago this happened to me. It's irrelevant because when this happened to me, one of the big things that I kept getting told by my great grandmother, she said, "You must remember this because you won't be speaking about it for over 20 years." So isn't it amazing that we're now living in a time where people want to discuss and theorize about what is out there after our death? So it does give us that peace, that hope, and most of all, that belief that there is something after our death where we continue on living. So
I
thank you
love
so
that.
much
I
for
love that
having
you
me.
explain that. And normally I let my guests start to tell me immediately like what their life was like before. But before we do that, because of what you just said, I want to ask you one question that I think will really help the audience as they're listening to your story. You were on the other side. Time didn't exist for 5 Earth years, and you had an 18-month conversation, which I love how you explain that, and I'll let you get into that when with your NDE. But
Yeah.
what I want you to tell everybody is how your memory of that NDE is different than our normal human memories when we remember a conversation we had with a friend, or we
Sure.
remember a dream
Yep.
or something to that effect.
And I've got to be honest with you. I died 23 years ago. But when I close my eyes, I can still hear the music. I can still feel the energy. And I can taste the smell. Now, that contradicted itself. But when we're in heaven, everything is one. So when we smell, we actually taste and feel at the same time. So, and there's, we only have 5 senses here. But when I close my eyes, I'm still there, even though
So
it's
it's as if it
23 years ago.
happened yesterday. It's not as if it happened 23
I would
years
say
ago.
even more closer than yesterday. It's almost like I'm still there now.
Wow.
When I
Thank you
go
so
to
much.
bed,
That's so
and
helpful because people have a really hard time understanding why there's so
yeah,
much information and how you can connect to it, because our human brains
yeah,
really don't work that way
that's
normally.
right.
Unless you've
So
got a
here's,
photographic memory, right?
I wish I did too.
Me too. Me
But
too.
for your viewers, wherever you are right now, close your eyes and visualize where you are. You might be sitting in front of a TV, you might be sitting in front of your phone or computer, you might be sitting in your bedroom or your living area, or sitting in your car. So close your eyes right now and
Unless you're
you know
driving,
where
don't do
you are.
that.
Yeah, but if you're driving, don't do that. But you close your eyes and you know where you are. So when I close my eyes and I think about heaven, I'm there. Just like right now where I'm sitting in this chair with my red crystal behind me. I'm right there. It never goes away. It never falters or diminishes. It increases, in fact, every time I think about it. And it's
That's
beautiful.
amazing. It
It's
is beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with your life before this experience happened?
Yeah, sure. So I was born back in the 1960s, and I'm honest with people, I was quite a sickly child. The doctors told my mum that I'd need heart, lung, and kidney transplants before I was 10. So I firmly believe that I had NDEs as a baby, being so unwell in hospital. Because the reason why I justify that is because I've always been a psychic. And believe me, through my PhD studies, I have researched the connection of when we're sick to people who have psychic abilities. It's almost like we're closer to that source of energy. So growing up, I've always been the one who knew things before they would happen. I would know people's names. I'd go for the phone before it rang, that sort of stuff. I knew what happened to people. So, and then I started seeing ghosts when I was about 6. So I was the one who was different. And it was about 2 years after that that I realized that I had to turn it off for a few years. I remember lying in bed, I actually had this guy next to me with major critical injuries. And I'm under the covers screaming because I was only like 8 years old, thinking, I can't do this anymore. I need to switch this off. So take it away. So it wasn't until again when I was 12, my dad took me to London in the UK as part of his work. He decided every weekend he would take us to castles. And as a psychic who could see ghosts, what do you think I started seeing again? So I remember vividly being at castles and seeing ghosts. I remember being at the um, Tower of London, and I was actually saying to my sisters, look at the elephant. Why is there an elephant here? And she said, there's no elephant. What do you mean? And it was only about 3 years ago that I found out that they had a zoo at the Tower of London. There was all animals on that very lawn where I saw these ghosts of animals when I was 12, which is 35 years ago. So I had it again. I got married early, which didn't work out. He used to call me the freak. He used to call me his witch. I was the party trick whenever we went to other people's houses. Who would like a free reading from Lynda type stuff. But we broke up and I ended up going to America. I'd met a man through work. I went over there and he said, come on over for a holiday. We ended up getting married and it was one of the most horrendous, violent, abusive relationships I've ever seen. I don't like talking about the day I died because it was due to his assaulting me. So I now am a counsellor, obviously. I've got a lot of qualifications to help people through domestic abuse when it does occur because I believe thoroughly that everything does happen for a reason and I was put into that position so obviously so I can help others going through the same thing. So what happened May 6, 2001? I was struggling to breathe. I was quite sick. I woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I could not breathe at all. And I made myself get up because I was dying to go to the toilet. Literally, haha, so I can joke about this stuff. Dying to go to the toilet. I made it to the toilet. And as I got to the toilet, I remember taking a breath and I went to sleep. I actually didn't go to sleep. I died. So I then found myself floating in my living room, which was about 5 rooms away. My body was in the bedroom on the ensuite toilet, and I had no concern for where she was. She was, because I was now in the living room, floating up near the ceiling, and I was calm, collected. I had no thoughts of, oh my God, there's so much dust on that bookcase. There was no thoughts of who's going to pay the bills, who's going to feed the dogs. There was nothing like that. It was totally calmness with no emotional triggers at all. I watched the front door come, there was a knock at the door and I saw my ex, well, is now my ex. He came through the room, opened the door. He let in the paramedics. I watched the fire department personnel come in. I saw another 2 paramedics come through. So after I got all my medical files, I've realised that all that process was actually 45 minutes in Earth time. So from the time of the first paramedics, the second paramedics until they wheeled me out, that was 45 minutes. So I was floating for that Earth time 45 minutes. When they left with my body, I was still floating there. And that's when these orbs came through the door. Brilliant, beautiful, dark blue orbs. Some were small, some were bigger, and they were circular, vibrating energy is what I call it. It was energy. I could see in the middle of them. And look, it even makes my eyes water just thinking about them because they were so loving. They were hovering around me, but they did not communicate with me, but I could tell that they communicated with each other because they didn't bump into each other. They hovered around me for probably 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not sure. It could have been 15 minutes. I do explain all this in my book, by the way. But then they all just stopped and they all went out the door. Then I found myself in what I call the fog stage. It's like closing your eyes and you open your eyes and you're in a totally different place. I'm now standing in this field of flowers. Beautiful, calm. The colours I cannot explain. And as I'm looking around the rolling hills with all these beautiful flowers, and I've got a drawing of what one of these flowers looks like in my book. So these flowers, I looked down and I found that I now had feet because when I was floating, I didn't have feet. So I looked down and as I tried to walk, the flowers moved to avoid being crushed. But then I had an awareness. They moved because they knew that I thought I would crush them. So they knew my thoughts. I couldn't have crushed them because I was no longer in a physical body. So they showed that compassion and perspective, that they were respecting my thoughts. I walked down through the valleys. I saw cities way, way off in the distance. I walked down through oceans, past houses, down footpaths. So when I mention how long I was in this place, I have to estimate because I walk at about 4 miles per hour. That's my pace of walking. So as I'm walking down past houses and structures and trees, etc., I estimate in this place I would have been there for about 18 months, because not only the conversations that I had, where it wasn't just say, hey, how are you today? It was long conversations. And also when I contemplated my emotions and thoughts, which I'll go into in a minute. But I estimate I was there for about 18 months. Walking into the big buildings, there was no technology, so there was no elevators or escalators, but there were stairs if I wanted to use them. Because by now I'd learnt what I thought I created. So if I thought about being on top of the mountain, I was instantly on top of that mountain. If I thought to be the duck, which I explain in my book about the duck, instantly I became the duck, where I could feel feathers and webbed feet and my bill. So we contemplate, we think, and we create. That's what is the biggest message of heaven, because it's so loving that we constantly create love within us and everything else around us, because everything was one. Okay? So in this place, I reckon I was there for about 18 months. The music, I cannot explain the music because we don't have instruments here that describe it. But when I close my eyes, I am still encapsulated by that music. It is right there. I can hear it right now. And it's like a repetitive tribal dance of music. But I cannot tell you what. It's not a string instrument. It's not a percussion, and it's not a wind instrument. Is it the voice of angels? Possibly, because I've never heard anything like it in my life. So I'm in this place walking and talking, becoming other people. I watched bears turning into little boys. I watched this woman. Now, this was a really interesting one because she was right next to me when she did this. She was a medieval woman, sort of like Anne Boleyn, dressed in this long velvety type gown. She had the nice headpiece from the 1400s or the 1600s, and instantly she changed and she became this 1970s hippie in a little flower power dress, mini dress, and she had a little black bob. I watched her and I instantly realized that we are not changing our appearance, we are changing our lives, because we're now at a soul level where we are all the lives that we had ever lived in that lifetime of our soul existence. So when we talk about past lives, I just didn't see past lives because in this place time did not exist. I saw people with such sci-fi type clothes on 3,000 years in the future, because that's one of their lives that they had lived, even though it hasn't existed yet in our existence on this three-dimensional world. So there was no time in this place. Then I get this tap on my shoulder, and I now find myself back in the fog stage, and I'm now outside of this huge cathedral made of sandstone and wood. The wood paneling, I estimate 300 feet of wood paneling just from one tree. So you can't imagine the size of the trees it would have been to create this structure. As I walked in, the sandstone blocks, I can't explain how big these were, they melded with the wood. So there was that connection. And there was long pews, long church chairs called pews. Probably 30 people could easily sit on these seats, and it was made from one piece of wood. Immaculate, beautiful. And as I'm looking down this long corridor, way at the end, there was 3 beings there. I've got their picture is actually my book cover. So I'll just quickly show you this one. That's my book cover with these 3 beings. They were not beings, they were energy. The energy was going up like a reverse waterfall, and it was swirling around where their heads were. But it wasn't just going one way, it was going both ways at once. And it was dimensional. I could see into them. And in front of them, there was this huge box, and it had energy coming out of it. I could see the energy rays, and it was beautiful. But I wasn't scared. I was so calm. And one of them spoke to me telepathically, and they said, "We are not here to judge." And instantly I knew that I was here to judge. I was here to judge me. Every action I'd done, every reaction I had done, every thought I had ever had is a creation of an intention that puts energy out there into the ether that causes a ripple that does affect others. So when I'm in an angry mood, that anger comes out of me like a ripple of energy, and it affects other people. And this is what happens when we walk into a room and we smile, because our emotions are contagious. So everybody else starts smiling. So in this place, I had to look into that box, and in the box were thousands, millions of my memories, all in little round orbs with like a little TV screen in the middle. So I have a picture of what this looks like in my book, of what I drew to explain what it looks like. And as I pick out a memory, and I'm holding it in my hand, first of all, I watch the replay of this memory to see it from an outsider's perspective. But then I became me. And I have to go through all the, why did I do that? How did I do that? Why did you do that for? And then I become the other person or animal as the consequence of my actions. And I became their perspective. Why did Lynda do that to me for? Ouch, that hurt. Why did Lynda hurt me for? And some of my memories were good where I've been nice to people. And it's tenfold. The emotion is so amplified that anything I did good, even smiling at a stranger, in heaven when I'm judging myself, why did you do that? I'm crying my eyes out with the appreciation and the gratitude from the person I smiled at. So bad things that I've done, like, I don't know, we all do it. We tell people, oh, stop doing that to me. We've been nasty every now and again. When you're angry and you flick somebody off, or you say things that you don't really mean, all those memories of our intentions is what we have to heal. So how many of these memories did I go through? I think I processed 6,000 or 8,000 of them, picking one out at a time, and then the process of healing it. Some of them would have been probably, if I had to guess, 10, 15 minutes. But other ones were more heavily, really not nice ones, or really good ones, where you've really got to sit there and psychoanalyze it. Why did you do that? What was that repercussion? What was the ripple that happened as a consequence of that? So we have to go through all those ripples. So I look at people in history. Let's go there with someone that we don't know, Adolf Hitler.
Thank you
Yeah,
for saying that. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I can't tell you how many times this is the example in the comments about what about the evil? What about the hell? What about all
that's
this? Oh my
right.
gosh. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I normally do
No,
not
you're
talk
fine.
during somebody's NDE, but this is such a big deal. I'm so excited you're going to share this.
Okay, look at Adolf Hitler. Obviously, not everyone is totally 100% bad. His girlfriend, Eva Braun, obviously saw something nice in him. Yeah? So we can't judge if he was all bad or partly good or whatever, because we separate from him. But when we look at his atrocities, like the genocide with Auschwitz, which is horrible, extremely horrible things. I today in 2023, I'm sitting here now with you telling you what a man 100 years ago did. But because I'm having this emotional effect from what he did, he had to now heal that ripple in his life review. Even though I've never met him, but because I know him and I get that emotional response to what he did, he now, when he faced his life review, standing there with his own box of memories, or however he perceived it in his own reality, he has to go through every single one of those lifetimes. Every single person that he deliberately hurt, he has to judge himself why he did it. So let's look at someone that we do know about, Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates, he's had a wife, he's had kids. I'm sure not everything about him is bad. But when we look about his deliberate intentions of what has now harmed quite a few people without saying what he's done, I hope people are reading through the lines here. But when we look about anything medical that he's brought out since the pandemic, where there have been people hurt by those, and look at the polio vaccines and other vaccines that have had reactions, where they know it's done that. I don't want to be a fly on the wall when they have to judge themselves why they did that. It's personal for them only. We don't have to be that, we don't have to be the one that says, I'm going to punish you for this. I don't have to be the one who says, I'm going to make you suffer for what you've done, because ultimately that's just my ego. And when we let go of ego and we allow karmic energy to do its job, when they are standing there going through that box of their memories, believe me, it is tenfold. So why do we have people being nasty? That was taught to me after I finished my life review. I got the tap on the shoulder, and now I find myself in this white space. No walls, no floors, no ceiling. But I can't feel what I'm standing on. So if you put your feet on the floor right now, you can feel floor there. I couldn't feel floor. It was all white. It was like I was floating, but I wasn't floating. And way off in the distance was a woman. And as she walked, she got bigger towards me as she came towards me. She comes up to me and she's so angry and she says, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I don't know where I am." She calms herself down and she's like flattening down her dress, like this. She says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No." She says, "I am your great, 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 great grandmother, Karina." Okay, this took me back a little bit because up until then, I've had 18 months like Earth time if I've been in my life review, processing all these thousands of memories. Heaven was so nice. And here I am having this woman sort of like yelling at me. So she starts talking about herself. where she lived, how she was brought up, how to make an axe out of a tree, how to make a device to do washing of laundry on, how to go to the toilet, how to cook bread. Extremely long processes involved, every minute detail. So if we were talking on a phone, this would have been weeks and weeks and months just talking about her stuff. But then she starts talking about me. And some of the things that she said to me, now I remember her quotes, not like it was yesterday, but it's like I just got off the phone with her now. As soon as I close my eyes, I'm still there talking to her. And one of the things that she said to me was, you must go back and you must remember this date, because the date she told me. She said, on this date, you will conceive your daughter, who is very important to us. Us? Daughter? You're telling me a date 4 years away? So now I'm feeling like John Connor out of the Terminator movies, sort of. So she's telling me about jobs that I'm going to have. She told me I'd work with the police for 10 years. I did, 2002 to 2012. She told me I'd need 2 years off because of all the stress from that job, which I did because I got PTSD. She told me I'd work as a first aid trainer for 2 years. And she said, you must go there to learn the lessons of how to look after others. I was a first aid trainer for exactly 2 years, January 15 to January 17. How did she know that in 2001? She told me about earthquakes. She told me about that Indonesian tsunami where 250,000 souls would be lost. She told me, you will be sitting on your device, on your computer, and you will be watching the land to your to your east. The land will grow 3 miles from the volcano. Now, when that volcano happened in Hawaii a few years ago, I was there every day watching that lava flow because I knew, and I told people the week before that happened, that we're going to have a volcano in Hawaii is about to go kabang, and it's going to grow 3 miles of land. So I sat there every day watching that lava spewing out of that volcano and all the fissures where it grew 3 miles of land. She told me about the vaccines. She told me about COVID. She told me about how many millions would die over the next couple of years. But then she said, from 2025, we enter this space where a peace can come. So she told me about 2025 till 2030, where people start, she didn't say waking up, but it was interpreted to me as people are learning what is truly out there. So this to me was people are waking up, like growing spiritually. We are realizing that this materialistic world with governments, banking systems, food, because in heaven we don't eat, all this materialistic stuff that we exist in is not the end of the story. So then Karina started talking to me about life lessons, life contracts, reincarnation, which I have a picture again in my book. She said, you cannot go into that tunnel. So I've got a picture of the tunnel, what it looks like, and I explained the tunnel. She said, if you go into that tunnel, you can never go back. And that's where I said to her, what do you mean go back? Because I don't know how I got here in the first place. She said to me, she was telling me things like, how do we learn self-sacrifice unless we are a child who dies before we are born? How do we learn to grieve unconditionally for somebody unless we are the mother of that unborn child? And how do we learn forgiveness and understanding of other people's issues unless we're the father of that unborn child. That's how she spoke. So when she was telling me about bad people doing bad things, she said, how do you know what is good unless you see someone who does something wrong? How do we learn to be better unless we personally experience trauma, grief, and uncertainty to make us stronger, to be that strength for others? That's how she spoke. So in this space, how long was I with her? I estimate about 18 months, 2 years. You know, when you sit there and you're on the phone with a friend and you're talking back and forward, and then you look at the call log and it says an hour, you can actually sit there and think, okay, this is what we spoke about in that hour. When I spoke to Karina, I have to estimate that at 18 months to 2 years, because that's how long these conversations were. And it wasn't like it was a knowing like in heaven. It was back and forward talking out of our mouths, talking, not telepathic, where it took time to say the sentence structure, to make the words. Because in heaven, when we speak, we don't have to say, how are you today? We think, how are you today? And it is known instantly by the other person, because what we think, we create. So Karina says to me, after she tells me about life contracts, life lessons, why we come here, what is reincarnation, what are souls' purposes, why do we leave heaven? Pardon me. I explain this in my books, because I've got 4 books. How do we learn to love constantly unless we're taken away from that, so we learn the value of it? So I say in my book, imagine the first day that you go to the beach, you're excited, you're exhilarated, you run down in that sand, I'm at the beach. The second day you run down, it's like, oh yeah, I'm at the beach. Third day you're there and it's like, oh yeah, here I am again. So we lose that passion, that excitement, and most of all, love for what we experience. So we come here with all these dramas and illnesses, stress and bills. So we keep that love alive by creating it, even in all that adversity of all this nasty stuff coming at us. How do we learn to love unless it's taken away? So we value the importance of it. That's what she said. So then she said, it's time to go. You've got to go back. And I said again, how do I go back? I don't know where I was. She said, Lynda, haven't you worked it out yet? Think about where you were and you become where you were. So I closed my eyes and I thought about the house where I lived with my ex-husband. And instantly I'm now finding myself in a hospital bed. And I've got this extremely horrible pain in my arm from the blood pressure cuff, doing my blood pressure. It hurt severely because remember, 5 years I've been gone where there's no pains, no aches, no cramps, no bathroom breaks or food. This was so new to me, having to deal with pain. And as I sort of wake up and I'm opening my eyes, because I'm very short-sighted, which didn't help this day, but I can watch them as they're pulling the blue tube out of my lungs because I've been on life support. That wasn't too good, by the way, because I could see it very clearly. And I can hear the nurse, are you there, Lynda? Are you there? If you can hear me, squeeze my hand. So now I've got a hand and I'm trying to physically squeeze her hand. And I could hear the nurse saying, she's here, she's waking up, she's waking up. That's me coming out of my coma. The next thing I know is I try to sit up, which didn't work, which again, so unusual, because I had to learn how to use muscles. I didn't have muscles. I'm this energetic being who can become anything. I'm sort of like impervious to all this. I'm invincible because I'm an immortal energy force. But now you're telling me that I'm a mortal being in this blubber of DNA and jelly that creates our body? What? So I find myself in this one room. They put me into my own ward. I've got my own separate room. The nurse walks in and she says, "How are you going?" And I said, "It's all right, I'm talking to them." She's looking at the corner of my bed, she's looking at me, and she says, "Lynda, there's no one there." And I said, "Yes, there is. There's a dog. Looks like a light sandy coloured Labrador. There was a boy, there was a girl, there was a lady sitting in a chair, and there was a man, old lady, probably 80 years old, and there was a man there, probably mid-50s. She's looking and she says, "No, there's no one there." So I looked at these people and I said, "If you're here, you want her to know that you're here, can you please bang on the window?" Bang, bang, bang on the glass. The whole window shook. She dropped her clipboard, she ran, and she never came back into my room. So it was constant. I'd go for the phone before it would ring. I knew which way to go to work, etc. because there'd be a car accident there even though I didn't know about it. I'd know cars coming over the hill towards me to avoid them. I'd know houses, colours of rooms. I'd go to people's places and you know where the bathroom is. I remember going to a friend's house and as I said, "Oh, I'm just going to go to the toilet." I said, "Oh, where do you keep your toilet rolls? Because there's none in there." She said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I can already see it." And that's how I do it. I see it. I get this little TV screen that comes up and I see little visions on there of what's about to occur. I have this lady with me who I explain in my book. She takes up the whole first chapter. Who is she? My angel, my guide, my protector. She saved me from a car accident. She healed my broken neck. And she has appeared at the pool to tell me that I was about to start seeing spirit guides, because that's another thing I've been upgraded with. Not only am I a psychic medium, I have all these gifts, but now you're telling me I also see spirit guides? So I now see spirit guides. Just this morning, I told a lady what hers was, and she said, "Oh my God, I've been collecting that animal all my life and I never knew why." So where is Lynda heading now? Lynda openly discusses everything I've been through. I now understand through my training, getting a PhD, life coaching qualifications. I'm an ordained reverend. I've got about 20 qualifications on my website if you want to have a look at those. I talk to people globally every day. I hardly ever take time off because the world now is in this grief-stricken madness where we all deserve to live like heaven. So who better to teach others how to be like heaven unless it comes from somebody who's been there to experience it and to learn from it. So if I have a mission in life now, a purpose, it's to make you your best version possible. So that's what I do now. And I welcome emails. I welcome people who want to book sessions with me. I do sessions like psychic reading. I do personal development and growth, how to get through bad situations in life, how to seek that clarity that we all deserve, and because we are treasured people. But most importantly, I love teaching self-worth because we are valuable. Every single one of us is that drop of heaven, living an individual life that we can't fathom in this three-dimensional world, but we are all connected. And it's through that unity of that love that does create a better, loving energy for the whole planet. So there's my story.
Lynda, I love your NDE so much. While you were talking, I was reminded of about maybe 2 years ago hearing your story, and I had forgotten. So, one of the things that I began doing when I started this channel, started interviewing people who had near death experiences, is I specifically sought out people who had life reviews because I felt that that was the most impactful information that I ever got from anybody's experience, was understanding this ripple effect that's so dramatic that a smile can stop somebody from creating something in their life that they might have created had they not had that interaction with you. And
Absolutely.
ties into soul contracts and everything, but
Yeah.
I had forgotten how detailed your life review is. And I want to tell you, your life review of all the, I mean, I've listened to, watched, read over 2,000 at least now near-death experiences. It is the most detailed and incredible. The only one that comes close to that life review is my friend Jeremiah, who I interviewed on this show. And he also had the orb experience that you did, but a little differently. And
Yeah.
I've never,
Well,
ever heard anybody have a box. It was almost like, it reminds me of Hermione's purse, where you could reach in there
well,
and it doesn't end, right? Of all those
I
bubbles.
I actually call it the Ark of the Covenant.
I love
If you
it.
watch Indiana Jones. Yeah.
Yes, I
But
do.
you've just brought up a very big topic. Why does everybody have different experiences? And I can explain that in layman's terms as being that we all have a perception of our own consciousness. When I talk about the energy of heaven, that energy is consciousness because it's alive, it's thriving, it's intelligent being in energetic form. So when we go to heaven, some people see angels, Jesus, Muhammad, whoever. If you look at Billy Stanley, he saw his stepbrother, who was Elvis Presley. He met him there. So I didn't see Elvis, I didn't see Jesus, but it doesn't mean they weren't there. Just because I go to the beach today doesn't mean I find shells, right? But shells are at the beach. So we have to step back from our egotistical desires of what we want to create in heaven or what we perceive to be there, and just allow our own consciousness to take us there. So the more we live in that upper vibrational stage of compassion, kindness, love, and etc., we do go to heaven. Because as you know, you've studied so many that have gone there. So why do people go to like a hell experience? Is what I learned there from Karina. She said those that are hanging on to grudges, regrets, those who live in revenge, those who deliberately do things to harm or hurt others, they then have to feel that weight of their actions, which creates that hell experience for them. So one of the books that I've been working on is Hell Explained, talking about the TV show Lucifer, because there's some really good quotes in there. It's almost like someone went to hell and they've realized what it's like. So I've got quotes there from the Lucifer. I've got about 6 different episodes where they do talk about the hell loop that we create through that consciousness of a perception where we are not good enough because of our actions. So I talk about how to get into a better loving environment, which was going to be my book, Love Explained. But then every time I write Hell Explained and every time I get into Love Explained, it's almost like, stop, Lynda, because she talks to me as well, whoever she is from chapter 1 in my book. But I have always stopped back. So now I'm starting another book and it's called Outer Consciousness Explained.
Well, before you go into that, I want to stay on the hell part. Hold on a second. Don't go that direction yet. We'll come back to that.
Sure,
Because
sure.
this hell part, I think, is really, really, really important. The reason it's important is because I read every single comment that is posted on my channel. And when I present a concept that goes against religion,
Oh,
all
yeah.
of the people who have that belief system start asking about, what about hell? What about the
That's right.
devil? What about the Satan?
Yes.
What about the Bible? What about all these things? And I'm going to make myself super vulnerable because I do not know what you're going to answer to this question I'm going to ask you. But when I was on the other side, I had this knowingness that hell did not exist in that place. It couldn't. The only thing that existed in that place was love. There was nothing else that could have existed. So I'm
That's
going to ask you,
right.
because of the quote that you said while you were talking about this, you said, just because you didn't see Jesus doesn't mean he wasn't there. So are
That's
you
right.
saying that just because I didn't see hell doesn't mean that hell is not there from your perspective?
I thoroughly believe heaven is nowhere. Let me explain. There is no physical location for heaven. Heaven is energy. And when we go past this three-dimensional plane that we live in, which is so limited and it's so hard to break out of, but once we go into different dimensions, like a lot of people now are saying, 5-dimension, we're going to ascend to this 5-dimensional realm, where is it? There is no where. There's no how, but there is just is. Because it's everywhere. If we look at the word bilocation in science, because I've studied a lot of science trying to understand what I went through, when we look at bilocation, we can't physically create it because my hand cannot take up the same space as my other hand. They don't penetrate. But in heaven, it does penetrate and it becomes one. So that's what happens here with this three-dimensional world. We've got the three-dimensional Lynda hand, but when we look at someone from heaven, their hand is in us. It bilocates. So heaven is everywhere. It's within us. It's within my pen. It's within my computer mouse. It's within my tissue box. It's everywhere because it's the energy of consciousness. So when we create a heavenly experience like what you've had and a lot of other people, we're creating that perception of what we have believed. That's why do you think I went to a church? Because I was sort of brought up religious. Why did we all land in the field of flowers? Now that there is why I went and did my PhD. Why do so many people land in a field of flowers? Is there an X on the ground and it says here, X marks the spot? When you land in heaven, that's where you all land on, like a landing strip? So why is that so common with people of different races, different religions, different beliefs? So I look at those commonalities that occur that proves that even though there's no physical place of heaven and no physical place of hell, they exist within us and it's everywhere. So does that mean that hell is everywhere as well? Yes. Every time I have a bad decision, every time I have a bad thought, oh man, I wish that would happen to that person. Every time I create that anger, every time I create frustration, stress, I am lowering my vibration, which takes me into that energetic plane of where hell exists. Hell exists down here in low vibrational states, like a dimension. Heaven is a higher vibration. So when you look at things like singing bowls, tinchy bells, when you look at tuning forks and they are set to a set vibration, the more we raise ourselves up, the more we don't get affected by what's down here. But when we're down in this, we don't get affected by what's up in there. So I hope that sort of explains it to you.
No, that's probably the best explanation I've ever heard anybody, especially when you were doing this and you were showing that visually. It was very understandable.
Yeah,
It makes so much sense. So I'm going to ask you this question because it kind of tacks on to the
yeah.
rest. So if heaven exists all the time in all these dimensions, inside my pen, inside everything, but we leave our spirit body and we go somewhere, who goes to heaven versus hell? How does that work?
Okay. So let's look at somebody who does things deliberately. Now, if we look at the movie TV show Lucifer on Netflix, the ones who know that they've done things bad,
So intention.
that's the word, intention. Okay? Let's put it this way. Let's say I go to the park today and I'm drinking soft drink. Okay? And I think, oh man, I don't want this anymore. So I throw that soft drink into the lake. Next day, I go down with another bottle of soft drink and I think, oh, I'm finished. I throw it into the lake. The next day, a man comes up to me and he says, are you aware that when you throw that into that soft drink into the lake, not only the liquid is poisoning the fish and killing them, but the plastic is also getting eaten by the turtles and the fish and they die from the plastic. So now I know it's wrong. So the next day when I go to the lake and I've got my soft drink, if I decide, knowing that it's wrong, to throw that into the lake, that is causing that ripple effect of whether I go to heaven or hell. And that is what we have to judge in ourselves. No one else can do it for us. So the more things that we do where we hang on to regrets and grudges, like the beautiful thing is, I've got the most gorgeous story to tell you. Just yesterday on our news, a man is a cyclist. He rides a bike and he got hit by a huge SUV car. So he fixed himself up, and every day now, when he's riding on his bike, he's got a key and he goes down all the big SUVs and he's scratching all those cars. So these people haven't hurt him, but he is now deliberately blaming them for the other car that hit him. So what this man has now created is this perception of being nasty. Do you think he's operating on a high vibration or a low vibration? He is now creating anger, hatred, frustration. He's causing other people to feel pain. And if you know me, I live by the philosophy, no harm to anyone. So he is deliberately, with him knowing that it's wrong, he's doing that to other people. So
Right. But when you say that, then, and you say that these intentions cause people to go to one place or another, he
yeah,
scratched some cars. So now he's going to hell.
he
Or explain what that means.
he may, because it's his own perception. I can't judge
Just
where
his
he
perception.
goes.
So hell isn't a place we're being sent. Hell is a place where we
We
take
create
ourselves.
it.
This is the
We create
differentiation.
it. We don't get sent to hell. When we die, there's no, we do have an, oh my gosh, here we go. Another one of the things I do, I see angels. And I've seen a few angels in my life. And one of those was Uriel. He turned up at my house with a lady and he said to me, I am the angel of death. He wasn't there to take her. He was there to guide her through the grief of losing her son, who only died like two weeks before. So he was helping her through that grief process. So when we look at angels, do they come to take us to heaven? Do they come to take us to hell? No, but they will assist us to get through the process. but they don't create the pathway of which way we go. We create it. We are that manufacturer of our own reality after we die. So I try every day, because I've been to heaven once. I want to go back there. I know how to get there. So that's why I teach people, if you do want to go to heaven, these are the steps, these are the processes, this is what you've got to let go of. Allow, don't judge, and you'll go to heaven. But if we stay on this path of being nasty, judgmental, accusing, sarcastic, belittling others, jealousies, being selfish, all that stuff, which, believe me, society loves it when we're doing that sort of stuff. But the more we do that, the more we are only making ourselves suffer. And it's as soon as we let go of it, and as soon as we learn to forgive, I don't care what Bill Gates does. I don't care what Adolf Hitler did. Because at the end of the day, I allow them to do whatever they wanted. Because I know the judgment that they have to make to themselves. And it's bad. Tenfold.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think that
want
that's so
tenfold.
powerful. This is so powerful. I think people
Yeah.
need to hear this.
I want tenfold of love.
Yeah.
You know, when I smile at a stranger, to me that's just like, oh yeah, Lynda, you just smiled. But when I'm in heaven and I'm there, oh, because it's like it's in your face, this boom of happiness. And you're sitting there and then you start bawling your eyes out and it's like, wow, I feel it to my core. That's how powerful it is just by smiling at somebody else. And look at me now. I am absolutely charged up because I'm just thinking of one memory of smiling at a stranger.
I love it. So powerful. This
It
is the whole
is.
message of this channel, is that
We,
you are a
yeah,
powerful soul.
we don't know how powerful our thoughts are. Our thoughts are our intentions, which then, through the neuroplasticity of our brain and all the other channels through the brain process, it comes out of our mouth as words. So our words, every single thing we say, we create.
Right.
So I live by simple philosophies. And one of
Okay.
those is my post-it notes. And my big one is I am, I have, I do. I have, I do, I
I
am.
do, I am. Okay.
I have love. I have loving friendships. I have love within me. I do create loving energy. I do every day create what I want to be in my future. I am love. I am a positive, loving person. I am healthy. I do eat healthy. I have health within me. So the more we say the I ams, I haves, I do's, the more we create. Just like the power of attraction, the law of attraction or manifestation, spells, incantation, whatever you want to call it. My first husband used to call me the witch. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago I realized he was right. Because I manifest, I create, I incite in others what they want to be.
I love it. I am
That's a
so
witch.
happy. I am so happy you shared that, Lynda. This is the reason that I love to do this, because when I talk to someone like you with your vast experiences and your amazing way of explaining it, and then these little tricks, and when I say little, I should use air quotes
Yeah.
because they're massively big. But for the people that are watching, they're not probably going to have a near-death experience, but they can take the I am, I have, and I do. And you
Yeah.
gave a beautiful example of how that
Yeah.
works, how they can do it. And they can take a
Yeah.
simple free post-it note, write that down, and begin right
Oh,
now
yeah. Can I
practicing it.
tell you? I'll tell you a little story. It was January, about, oh God, about 8 years ago, January. I went to my doctor and I said, he said, why are you here today? And I said, I want you to weigh me and log it in your diary what I weigh. So he weighed me. I went home, and it was exactly 3 months later I went back, and he said, "What are you here for today?" And I said, "I want you to weigh me." So he looked at me and he said, "What happened?" I'd lost 16 kilos in 16 weeks. I'm sorry, 12 weeks, which is about 40 pounds. He said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "What did you eat?" I said, "I ate cheesecake and chocolate every day." He said, "You must have done something. What did you do?" And I said, "I'll tell you what I did. Every day for the past 3 months, I said, I am healthy, I am thin, I am skinny, I am losing weight. Every day for 3 months. And I lost 16 kilos in 12 weeks. So I proved the power of our thought. Now, something else you don't know about me, not only have I got a broken neck, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2017. And in 2019, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. Now listen to the way I talk. Not I have, I had, because it's now past. It was an inch lump. So that's that big in my neck. I've got all my scans, all my x-rays, ultrasounds, MRIs that prove I had these injuries. And guess what? I don't have them today. Do you see a shaved head from having brain surgery? Every day I said, I am healthy, I am fit, I am strong, I have my health, I am healthy, I do health, I am healthy. Every day I surrounded myself with positive thoughts. Every day I did the exercises in the back of my book on how to be like heaven again. Every day I filled myself with that high vibration where lowered vibration does not exist. Because down in those lower vibrations, that's where injuries and illnesses all survive. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks of this.
Yeah, he
So
does.
I follow along. Well, I didn't know about Dr. Joe until about 2 years ago, but that was after I cured my brain tumor. Because someone said, "Well, you do the things sort of like Dr. Joe does with healing ourselves." We all have the capacity to heal ourselves. It's only if we want to do the constant 24-hour work in obtaining it.
Right.
So I've proven it, not once, not twice, 3 times. I
Yeah.
have an x-ray that a doctor looked at only 3 years ago, and he said, "Lynda, you should be a quadriplegic because C2 and C3 in my neck are not connected."
Wow. My gosh, Lynda, this has been so much fun. And I'm sure that the people that are watching are going to want to connect with you. So tell
Sure,
people who are watching how they can find your
sure.
books, what your books are,
Okay.
and how they can work with you.
Well, my name's spelt differently because my mum wanted us all to be different. Well, she got me, I'm different. My name is Lynda, L-Y. Why did she put the Y in there? That's what I say. Lynda. My middle name is Ray, R-A-E. So if people go over to lindaray.info, not com, info, because I do information. So I used lindaray@info. That's my website, and there'll be links that you've got too. On my website, I've got a custom submission where you can email me. I've also got a link there to all my books, and I've also got a link if people wish to buy a session with me through Zoom or FaceTime or however they want to communicate. I personally don't charge for my readings because I talk to people globally. I only ask for a contribution of what people can afford because, we're going through hard times. I do not put my ego into my work. I am so humbled and so appreciative. I am just an average middle-aged woman from Australia who's had an exceptional experience where I just try to do my best to bring out everybody else's best as well. Look how much needed it is right now in what the world's going through. The world is hurting, not just the humans, we're talking about the animals, the trees, the water. the core of Earth is screaming out in pain because of all the judgment, hatred, and other negative energies that are being forced onto us with mandates and other lockdowns and all these other do this or do that philosophies. So I do my best to put everybody in high vibration. I'm also on YouTube. I've got over 11,000 subscribers. My channel is called Dr. Lynda Cramer, Lynda Cramer, Cramer with a C. Yes, even that's spelled different. But why? But I'm not different. My whole name is spelled different. But at the end of the day, I do my emails every day. I get a lot of emails, and like you, I reply to every single one of them, well, as best as I can. And on my YouTube, I try and reply to every single comment that's made on my YouTube channel
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And as you
It's
know,
almost
there's
a
no
full-time job
money.
sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I
But
do readings.
I super appreciate every comment. And as
Yeah.
a matter of fact, if something about Linda's testimony, her life review, or any of the other experiences that she had really touched you, resonated, I would love to hear what resonated
Yeah.
with you in this conversation in the comments,
Me
actually.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, you too. Lynda, this has been so much fun. I have loved this. Now, normally I ask a lot of questions. I kept writing questions down and then you would answer them and I would cross them off. You covered so much. You said your experience is extraordinary. And I want to say you are extraordinary. And I want to thank you
Wow.
so much.
Now you've got me crying.
You almost made me cry too. Thank you
Yeah.
so much I can feel your vibration and your kindness. I can feel your love. It makes me want to cry as well. And I just want to thank you so much for what you're doing to wake up the collective consciousness,
Yeah.
to do readings for people and to not charge them and then just be on the honor system of whatever you can afford is really walking the walk and talking the talk. So thank you for what you're doing to help raise the collective consciousness. It is
Well,
so needed right now.
and thank you so much for everything you're doing too, darling. You know, we don't look at this as a solo effort. I look at this as you do your part, I do my part. And around the world, we are creating that ley line of energy from you to me, to someone else in Spain, to someone in Portugal, to someone over in Canada, down to Argentina, someone in China, Russia, all the way down to Antarctica. We have to each be our little individual energy bursts to create what we want globally. So even just thinking a happy thought at night creates that ripple that does go out and get felt all around the planet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So thank you so much. And also thank you to everybody around the world for watching.
Thank you too.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.